address the sort of the inability this season to close out those games and with the drive in the fourth quarter at the end of the game?
Are you speaking specifically this week or just in general this year or just?
Specifically this week, but also, I mean, I think the statistics show that Baker has 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions in games in which you're trailing with 4 minutes or less.
Well, I guess I didn't really look at it that way, or I'd seen that. Obviously, we got to do it better collectively. Last week we started fast. We were up 10-0, had everything in front of us, and obviously couldn't continue offensively to score points when you need to score points and keep the momentum, matching scores when they score, which we didn't do a very good job of that. And but like I always say, there you can't carry over points or things you did last week. It's a new week, and it's on to the Bengals.
You got any sense that Baker's pressing in those situations, the end of game where he's trying to make a play to tie the game?
Well, pressing's probably a stretch. I think anytime you get towards the end of the game and you need to score, you have to make some plays down the field. If we're speaking, about last Sunday, so he was just trying to make a play. We had to push the ball down the field. I mean, we needed a touch. So.
Pick, it looked like he expected Jarvis to do something else, and they just read the coverage 2 different ways.
Just anticipation.
But specifically the Rams game, the Seattle game, and the Denver game before this were games where you had chances to make the winning drive and failed. Were there any similarities in all those, or are they?
Yeah, we didn't execute. I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, it's it's a game of execution against when you're going against the highest level of competition against really good coaches and really good players, and the team that executes best usually finds a way to win. We haven't executed at the level we need to at times. At times we have, and at times we haven't.
Has the inconsistency of that been the most frustrating part? Because when you guys aren't executing, we see the potential of the offense, and then at times it gets bogged down, like second half against Pittsburgh, or at times
Sure.
this
I
season.
mean, it's in the 30 years I've been coaching, it's always frustrating when you don't score, when you feel like you're doing things that are counterproductive to putting you in the best position to be successful, or they do something that takes you out of rhythm. So it's always frustrating when you put the amount of time we put in, players and coaches, and it doesn't show up on the field at times. At times it does, at times it doesn't. And that's part of this league, though. It just happens that, we're talking about us, and every team goes through it at certain times. It's just you're trying to make sure that at those critical moments, one, we're on the same page, one, we're ready to go and give ourselves the best chance to find a way to score every time we have it, and then especially at the end.
What are your thoughts on Odell maybe not being able to be the star receiver here that he has been in the past? Do you have any idea why that's going on here?
I don't look at it that way. I think that I don't want to phrase this. First of all, I think he's an outstanding football player. So let's start with that. I mean, I think I think it's just been certain circumstances that have stopped us from being able to get him the ball. And again, as I go back, we only have one football, and you get Kareem Hunt, you got Jarvis, you got Nick, and obviously we'd like to get the ball to him more. And the moment we get the ball to him more, then we'll be asking, why don't we get it to Nick more? And then you get it to Nick, and why don't you get it to Kareem more? So obviously we're always trying to get him involved.
Like, everyone knows that Julian Edelman's going to get the ball in the red zone, and they get Julian Edelman the ball in the red zone. And I know I'm asking a very simplistic style question, and it's more complicated than that. But I guess that's the thing. Like, people on the outside have trouble grappling with is, who cares if everyone knows if Odell's going to get the ball in the red zone? Why isn't he just getting the ball in the red zone and getting those opportunities?
Well, first off, let's start with this. We're pretty good at running it. I would put our running backs, our ability to run the football up against anybody once you get in the red zone. So that would be one answer. Two is they play different spots for what Edelman does for them and what Odell does for us. That doesn't mean you can't use him there. It's a fair question. Whenever you have a really good player, is how do you get him involved in all areas of the field? Third downs, red zone, run downs. So that's fair. And there are times in the game plan we have it, planned for him to get him the ball. And sometimes we haven't gotten to those spots enough, which is part of it.
Baker and Freddie alluded to it this week and after the game that the offensive line didn't hold up as much as you guys maybe anticipated or had hoped at times in that game, and that might affect the game plan in terms of getting Odell the ball. Has that been at times this year something that's hindered your ability because he's still running his route, the pocket's collapsing, and you got to do something else, or because you don't think you're going to have enough time in the pocket, you've got to get rid of the ball sooner, and sometimes that's to somebody like Jarvis. How much of that is played into Odell's career production just being down this year?
Some of that. I mean, it's last week, 2 of the last 3 weeks, we've played some pretty good ends, Dupree and Watt. That'll stress you in terms of your protections, and at times we're fine, and others when you get behind, in the game, that's gonna put you at a little bit of a disadvantage against any good edge rushers when you got to throw it. So, bottom line is that may be part of it, but there's, we just got to figure out a way to do it better. I mean, it's really not. That's some of it, but not all of it.
Since Kareem's come aboard, have you seen defenses change how they cover Odell, or is it pretty much the same, safety look that you saw the first 8 weeks?
Well, I think with every week, depending on how you utilize a player, determines what you see. So, in the last few weeks, when Odell's not getting utilized nearly as much, you're not seeing as much from a coverage standpoint. You are in the red zone when teams will bracket, and even on third downs, Pittsburgh did it a few weeks ago where they bracketed him and Jarvis. They look at where your targets are, who you're throwing to, and then work from there in terms of who they're trying to take away. Obviously, with Kareem, what you end up seeing is, teams are treating him, especially if he's in there with Nick, you're treating him like a wideout. They're going nickel, they're going dime. I don't care if you got a tight end there or not. They're matching him to make sure they've got an athletic player that can match him in terms of his route running skills. So, which is fine. That's normal. It gives you a chance to helps your run game some when you get a smaller player in there. But that's how most people adjust when you get just like when we were talking about New England, when you get their running backs, you have to make sure that you don't get a unfavorable matchup in terms of who you put out there defensively.
What stands out about Atkins and Dunlap, and just what kind of challenges that front present you guys?
They still have it. I mean, they still have enough in the tank, when they want to let it rip. Geno inside has been a powerful, explosive player that, if you single up enough, he's going to disrupt, he's going to shed and get off blocks. Same with Dunlap on the edge. He's long, athletic, and on third downs, they really get it dialed up, get to an edge, and really force you to really have an idea where they're at.
You know Zach Taylor very well?
I don't.
It seems in this period when Njoku's been not available that each of these tight ends have had their moments. Ricky Seals-Jones had some moments in the seam, and now it looks like it's Stephen Carlson's moment. What do you make of that? Is that okay, or would you like one of these guys to be more of a go-to tight end?
Well, Tony would like him. You'd like somebody that is that, and you're always hopeful. It doesn't matter where a player is in his career. We'd be doing a disservice to that player to not think they can still improve. That you can find what they do well, and put them in the best position to be successful. Not only them individually, but us on offense. So we've tried to do that. I still think, you're always looking at any position for a guy that can be a 3-down player that can not only block but can do the things down the field that you want. Those guys are becoming more and more rare, though, in terms of the guys that are, physical at the point and yet matchup problems on the perimeter. So you're always looking for, what's a player's dominant trait? What is it about any player that you have? What role do they fill in terms of a matchup issue? And you're always looking for that.
Did you know Carlson had that stiff arm in his arsenal?
Did not. That was pretty impressive. And the catch he made, battling for the ball in that under route that, was kept us from a turnover, obviously. So
Obviously, he didn't play against the Steelers, but how had Greg Robinson, since the benching and then those games since he came back?
well, it's we're talking about such a short turnaround here. We're talking about, from playing to not to bench, it's week to week, in terms of every player. It's not just Greg. Greg's not the only one that way, and that we all have a job to do. It's week to week with us. I mean, we all have a job to do to put the best product we can on the field. That's an assessment of every player. Now, certain players that, have played well over time have a little bit longer leash, if that makes sense, in terms of their productivity and what they do weekly. But Greg's no different than any other player. I mean, if you don't produce, if you don't do the things on the field that gives us a chance to win, then as an organization, as a team, you've got to look to do something, because that's what we're paid to do. We're paid to fix the puzzle and figure out the best way it is for us offensively to score, no matter who that may be.
One more on Odell Beckham. Even though we're here in December, the fact that he wasn't in OTAs, didn't do anything in preseason, and missed summer training camp, does that have any carryover into this inability to get him the ball in the red zone?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say by now. No.
Wyatt Teller now. What's your progress report on him?
I still think he's a young, developing player in terms of, what he can be. We're still working through that. I think he's had his moments of playing really good football for us. Really has. We got him late towards the end of training camp or at the beginning. I can't remember exactly when he came in, but then initially, Cush was playing guard, and he was a swing guy for us, and now he's out there. And I think you can continue to see his improvement, and I think he's going to continue to improve because he has, he's a powerful young man, still learning and developing, and that's what we hope, that each week he's going to continue to grow.
Do you feel like Baker's, where his key statistics are this season, rating, completion percentage, and all of those things, don't begin to tell the story of what his potential and his abilities are as a quarterback?
There's no doubt, and that is, like you said, that is a picture of, for instance, any statistical evidence that you have of any area you want to look at has its holes. Obviously, we've got to do it collectively as a group better, but I think he's a tremendous, tremendous football player, competitor, smart, tough, has a rare competitive quality and rare want to be great. And, that's the thing that I think is going to continue to push him and for him to push the rest of our offensive group. And there's been some moments where we haven't played as well around him. We've gotten behind a little bit, and he's competitive. But he isn't a guy that's going to, over his career, I'll be stunned if he's a guy that turns the ball over a lot. He doesn't have that in him. He does not. He is not careless with the football. If you look at, one of his interceptions is a shovel pass at New England, for God's sakes. It's not his fault. I mean, it's our fault. It's my fault for the way we designed it and the way it turned out. So there's certain things like that. Sure, there's other ones but in my mind, we've got the right guy going forward.
I know you weren't here when he was drafted, but one of the things Dorsey said about him was how he overcomes his height, because he gets back so quick. His drop back he had figured times of how he gets back with the ball so quickly. It doesn't look like he's doing it as quickly this year, and he does look a little overweight. Do you think that's playing a role in this season?
I don't think so. I don't see that as the issue. It's a little bit more a little more difficult when you're in gun in terms of the quickness of your drop. I mean, you're already almost at the, at the top of your drop. You'd have to talk to him in terms of his vision and how he sees it from there, because I can't speak to that. But I haven't seen that been an issue at this point in terms of his weight or in terms of the speed of his drop. I haven't seen that been the issue where we would have said those things. No, it's just been, collectively, we've got to do it better. And that's always the case. It's not as if I look and say, boy, it feels like over a certain amount of time the velocity's down, or, in terms of going through a progression. I don't see that. It's just, we got to do it better. I mean, that's a fact, collectively. And when we do that, then we'll continue to see our growth and consistency. And that's what you're looking for, is just the consistency against the best in the world. And that's where it comes down to, is everybody doing their job consistently, so you're not choppy. And that's been the big issue, is just when we've stopped moving, it's because we've been inconsistent. We've been choppy in terms of everybody taking their turns.